Hello, this is Ross Dolan from Immolation.
And Robert Vidney with Immolation.
Good to be here in Toronto.
What elements, like what's the recipe for a good album cover?
Good question.
I guess the atmosphere it's trying to relay in relation to the music, I guess, like having the artwork match basically what the music and the lyrical content is, I guess, to some extent, you know what I mean? Either abstract or directly, but, kind of, being part of that package, I think.
Yeah, I think that's how we kind of roll with each record. We try to get an idea of what we're trying to say throughout the record lyrically and the tone of the music and what we want to convey through the album cover. And, Bob and I, spend many hours, kind of going back and forth with ideas, trying to think of ideas, concepts. Sometimes just getting that album title is the catalyst to developing, the artwork, and that's how it's gone for, I think, most of our records,
Yeah, and much like the title of the record, you're trying to get something that kind of sums up all the songs, the culmination of all the songs on the album. So you try and do that with the title as well as the artwork and have it all tie together as best possible.
Obviously, our records would not benefit from, brighter colors and happier looking pictures, because of the tone of of our music and our lyrics. So that goes without saying. So, I mean, the aesthetic of the album has to be spot on with us. Like I said, we spend a lot of time, not only with the lyrics and making sure everything kind of vibes with the song. Again, it goes with the lyrics too. Certain ideas and concepts don't necessarily fit with certain songs musically. You'll know what song, to put a concept with, because it'll just hit you. It's like, okay, this is the music for this concept here.
We'll have certain concepts and ideas prior to, working on that part of it. Usually the music's first. So Ross and I both kind of get some ideas, titles, all different things together, and then once the songs are complete musically, then it's a matter of matching them up to saying, okay, this title would work good for this song, or this concept works good for this song, and so we kind of have them both, and it's just matching them up.
First few records, you worked with Andreas Marshall, I think, on the first 5.
Yes.
What drew you to his work? How did you guys become acquainted? And how was that creative relationship, especially on that first record?
Cool story, actually. We had another artist lined up for that first album, and we didn't use that artwork because we felt like, again, it didn't fit the tone and the vibe of what we were going for. We later used that for the Stepping on Angels CD, which was the compilation of all our earlier demos. So what happened was we were recording the first record in Berlin at Music Lab with Harris Johns. We were there for almost a month, so we had a lot of time there. So, during the session, Harris would, invite some friends over. We meet a bunch of his friends, and one of those friends was Andreas Marshall. And he said, hey, I got a good buddy who's a great artist. I'd like for you guys to meet him. Maybe you guys could, work together in the future. And then we met him, and I didn't realize he had done a lot of, classic movie art. He did the painting for Necromantic, and he did old school movies like Dressed to Kill. He did a lot of old school movie posters. He brought his portfolio out. And I was like, wow, this guy. I said, wow, I didn't realize.
We'd seen his artwork before, obviously, in both, the heavy metal records but we were just surprised to see all the movie stuff that he had done. So,
and he was, we met him and his girlfriend at the time, and they came out to the studio, and he was an amazing dude, just such a very personable guy. We got his number, and we faxed him and said, hey, listen, would you be able to do this cover for us? Here's our concept, and we did
a whole paragraph of ideas that we had and the scene and how we wanted it to look, and. Yeah. Eventually, he sent a facsimile back, so we got a fax back and had to go down to the office to look at the fax, and in the city. And then we saw what he had going on. And we're like, all right, he's got the idea. There were a couple of minor adjustments we wanted to tell him about. And then the next thing we got was the film, via FedEx 2 Roadrunner records in Manhattan again, so we had to drive down there when that came in. It's like old school. So we got that. We put it up to the light, and that was the Dawn of Possession album cover. And we're like, all right, this guy nailed it.
I mean, we saw that on a little slide like this, a little gel film. We held it up to the light, and as soon as you saw it, we were like, that's the cover right there. It was only that small. We knew that was a cover. But when he sent us, and we were, just to be clear, we're pretty meticulous about all of our covers, like placement of the different scenes, what's going on, tone, color. Like, we're pretty meticulous in how we describe it, just so the artist is on the same page. And then what they do from there is their, artistic license. So, like you said, we did the Dawn of Possession, Here and After, Failures, Close to a World Below, and Unholy Cult with Andreas. So those are the 5 we did with him, and he just knocked it out of the park with each and every one of them, And Close to a World Below was unique because I think he did a collaboration with his brother on that one. So the flames and the cross are all digital images, first time he ever did that, and the rest is his painted work. So everything kind of meshed together, So it was a collaboration of him and his brother. We would send him like a page or 2 of just notes, tone, vibe, color schemes, placement.
Descriptions of what's going on in the scene and what we're thinking, just to give the artist as much information to work with as they can. And then, there's definitely times they just do their own thing and take what we have and add their own elements, which is fine. But we at least like to say, okay, this is what we're thinking, and give our best description of that. And a lot of times, we'll even send some of the music or pre-production or whatever, just to kind of get, let them hear something too, so they can understand what the music sounds like, even if it's no vocals or anything on it, just something, just little bits and pieces of music, just to get an idea.
You guys introduced this visual theme, the battle between good and light,
good and evil, yeah.
Wing the angels and demons, and it kind of like comes full circle even with Acts of God.
Yeah, Eliran said that too. He said that to us. He's like, it's full circle now. I get to kind of create something and almost like a nod to your earlier album covers, because he was a huge fan of Andreas's work as well. And Eliran reached out to us years ago, probably around when we signed with Nuclear Blast, around Majesty and Decay era. And we already had Paul Olofsson on board for those album covers, and he did a killer job too. So Eliran was always up here. He was always on our radar, just it wasn't the time and place yet. So when we, got involved with the writing for this record during the pandemic and it was time, we were in the studio kind of like looking at artists, like, and I just kept coming back to him. I'm like, this is our fucking guy, man. This is the guy, And Bob agreed, and, we knew we wanted something much darker, much more, classical, like the earlier covers, and Eliran, like, his work is like a perfect blend of that, like, kind of, dark surrealism with like that classical sense, that Renaissance-y kind of vibe, and that's exactly what we were looking for. And we gave him the concepts, what we wanted, the tones, and he tweaked a couple of things and said, hey, I think this would be better. Originally, the dark rays of light coming down, which was a theme kind of throughout some of the songs. There was a mention of these dark rays. So we thought it'd be cool to have that and have the dark rays almost like burning the figures, and he said, how about we make it like the figures are getting melted, by those dark rays, and we're like, mint.
Even better,
You go with that. you take that ball and run with it, and it just looks so creepy, but it's like something you would imagine seeing in some old like cathedral somewhere in Europe somewhere. It's like that good, and he knocked it out of the park, Eliran. We were so over the moon over that one. Great, he killed it.
And again, like Majesty and Decay, another example, we had an idea and concept that you could, when that ray of light's coming down and it's kind of like going through the figure that's seated there, we had a slightly different idea about it, but he said, look, it would be better if we did this maybe like stone and this and that. And yeah, he nailed it with all of them, everything we came up with that we sent to Par, he nailed it as well. It's just that, they had slightly different themes. Like the second record, Kingdom, was more of a concept record, so we had that concept of all the, the building behind being made out of, the structure being made out of all the bodies and everything. So he liked that idea and worked that out, and that came out really dark.
That was a difficult concept.
It was a difficult
concept.
It is.
That was the toughest one we ever had, because
yeah.
it was hard to kind of get that in such a square pieces. You know what I mean? It was like so much we were trying to relay in that one thing, but considering it was tough, he at least made it work. Then we had Atonement, which he nailed that one too. So we had that whole concept, because that whole the wings with the thorns coming out was kind of lyrically in one of the songs, and we thought that would be a good visual, that kind of summed everything up, and that came out really cool too. So yeah, it's a similar process though each time. We just have our concepts, we think about stuff, and then we get as much information to the artist as we can, so at least they know where we're coming from and what emotions and feelings we're trying to relate through it, what the music's about.
I think it's easier, like, speaking for myself personally, when I have a concept, to develop, a song on, it's
Right.
much easier than to kind of, shoot blind,
Yeah.
I think for an artist to have that is a good, jumping off point for them. That's why it's very important to keep that, that continuity. You can't have like, one set of art be completely off base, and not match kind of what's going on in the cover. So even though they're very different, like, I guess stylistically, the themes are very similar, and the way Triple Sace does their artwork is exactly kind of what you see going on the album covers, just in a more stripped down form.
So if they, especially on the last record, they really came together. You had two different artists doing stuff, and they really came together.
Yeah.
Well, because you have the inner art that, even I think at some point, the way it was designed, you had some portions of the original album cover in there with the lyrics amongst all the stuff that Triple Sace did, and it all worked out really good.
And we had that with the Atonement record as well. That was the first album in a while that we had the additional art pieces on the inside to coincide with the cover.
Really good too.
Yeah, we used Zbigniew Bialik from Poland did that stuff, and he's done a lot of stuff for like bigger acts like Ghost and stuff like that. And yeah, he did the last Possessed album cover, so he does amazing work as well. Very different though from Triple Sace, different style, but very unique. And we love that. Just more like that black line work. You know what I'm saying? It's just amazing.
Have you ever purchased
All the time. All the time. I know what you're going to say. All the time. Oh, so much stuff in the early days. War and Pain, Voivod. I never heard of Voivod before. When that came out, there was we had a local chain called Crazy Eddie, and they had a record department. This is old school, so it was all vinyl when you walked in. All records. And I was tight with Will from Mortician when we were kids, and we kind of came up like when we were 13, 14, like discovering a lot of this underground stuff together. So we would take a trip, weekend trip up there, take the bus up to this place, and we'd go to the record department, and we'd find albums just based on the album covers. And we're like, wow, that looks sick. Let's get that. So Bathory, the first Bathory album, I bought just because, I saw that fucking goat on the cover. I'm like, that looks sick. And the way the logo was, and on the back it had the horns, Celtic Frost. And that one specifically, and War and Pain. I think we got those around the same time, and I saw that one. I was like, oh, I got to get this. It's sick,
So it really, it catches your attention, that's for sure. And if you haven't heard of that band, you're like, wow, what the hell is this?
What are some of the records you purchased?
Oh, I think there was the Celtic Frost. There was definitely, Maiden I got into right away, so that was, they always had
sick
great
album covers.
Yeah.
Last question, I'm going to totally put you two on the spot. Off the top of your head, what's your favorite album cover?
Artwork? Oh, wow, that's a hard one, dude. Oh my God, that's a fail question.
I got a million favorite ones, but definitely like Power Slave was one of my favorites.
There you go. That
I was like,
first then.
because it was, that was what I was 14 at the time. It was like, I was like 14 at the time, waiting for that new record to come out, and I remember first seeing that, and I was just like, oh my God, that's sick. And then they had, I don't know if they still have it on all of them now, but on the vinyl they had this kind of like raised textured, on the cover. So I was like, oh man, it was just sick. And I was like, what? And it had so many details, and it was just so sick looking.
All the little symbols you look for,
and all the little
totally.
little things that they put in there.
Derek
like
put a little things in there.
Little tomatoes
Kilroy
in there.
Was here and little shit like
so
that.
that was probably that's one of the ones that sticks in my head. I mean, there's a lot of other ones, but that one definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. You can't go wrong with any of the Maiden covers. Those early covers, like Peace of Mind was always one of my favorite. That was just a dark cover, just Eddie was all just sick and in the insane asylum, I love that one. I love Killers.
That stuff gets more like, now, of course, I still find them dark and everything, but when you're younger and you see something, you're like, that's pretty dark,
Oh,
What's going on with that?
another great one, or two great ones by the same band. Melissa and Don't Break the Oath.
Oh, yeah. Well, those
Melissa is probably one of the darkest covers to
That's a
me.
sick one, for sure.
Simple but dark. When you look at it, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That was sick. First Hellhammer, Apocalyptic Raids, the EP. That was just creepy looking. I love all the Voivod stuff, all the Voivod covers, the earlier covers, just sick artwork, because it was Wade did all that shit. So
and
it
you
was
see
like,
that
it's
like
great.
the first couple of records, you're like, the hell is that?
Yeah.
Kind of like, gotta check this out.
So
It's pretty cool.
hard to nail down one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's too many.